So while you're giving your thoughts on that one, I've been trying to come up with
Oh, a transition.
a transition for our next movie, but it's so very different than the other two on our list here.
Yes, it is.
Probably because of all of them, it's the least, for the kids.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
So
so
yeah.
Daniel, this is a movie I've been meaning to at least find out about for years,
Mhm.
because when I would see lists of Coen Brothers movies, I would just see Hudsucker Proxy, and I'm like, the hell is a Hudsucker Proxy?
Well, yeah. Well, unlike the previous movie, I actually did see this movie when I was in high school. We watched it in one of my business classes.
Huh?
Yeah. Um, which was an interesting choice, I thought. I'm like,
Yeah. So okay. So I didn't realize that you had seen it before.
yeah, yeah, like 20 plus years ago. But yeah, I kind of when as I was watching it, I was starting to remember parts of it. Yeah, but
Uh, Now that's an interesting choice for a business class movie,
yeah,
because like realistically, the only messages you'd get out of this movie are um, you have to communicate better,
yeah,
and it does touch like a little bit on corporate governance slightly. That
mhm,
this was probably the college professor just wanting to take it easy.
I think so. Yeah,
So Hudsucker Proxy. Every time I saw this title for years, I was thinking, well, why not just suck the HUDs directly? Don't use a proxy,
yeah,
which is the sort of demented thought process that has made me the man I am today.
yeah. But yeah, yeah. So this movie came out in the early '90s. With it was obviously Cohen, as we said, it was a Coen Brothers movie. And it definitely has their quirky style. Um, although not nearly as vulgar as their other movies like The Big Lebowski.
No, and I think it's because it's a period piece. Because it's weird in that it claims to be set in 1959, but all of the visual elements are like Art Deco, and the cars and the fashion are, and the way characters talk is pure 1930s.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's really only one reason it's set in 1959, and I don't necessarily know if I want to spoil. We necessarily want to spoil it. Um,
Yeah, we're gonna have a big spoiler section. Let's kind of talk in generalities for the moment.
okay, yeah, yeah. So basically, the plot of the movie centers on this company, the Hudsucker Industries, which is owned and run by Warring Hudsucker. And it starts off where he's in a board meeting, and the guy's telling me, "Oh yeah, we're doing great, and
At the
profits
top
are."
of the world.
Yes, and then Hudsucker decides, okay, and then he stands up on the boardroom table, runs across it, and jumps out the window, and falls down 44 stories.
45 if you count the mezzanine,
Yes, right.
which is a joke they kept making.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was like yeah, not even 5 minutes after he jumps out of the window, they're all still in the boardroom and they're trying to figure out what they're gonna do.
Right, because old man Hudsucker had no wife, had no kid, had no heirs. So per the bylaws, his 87% cut of the company was going to be liquidated on the open market. Well,
Yes, which meant the common rabble can buy stock in the company and have ownership in the company, and they don't want to have that.
right.
Yeah.
With the problem being that Paul Newman and company, well, the stock has been on such a tear lately that there would be no way for them to buy up a controlling stake of the company. So, the board would lose their majority stake or the majority status.
Mhm.
So they kind of come up with a springtime for Mustache Man scheme, or a producers type scheme where they're just going to hire some random schmuck.
Yes, and enter into that Norville Barnes, played by Tim Robbins, and he's a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, recent business school graduate from was it Idaho or Iowa?
He's from no, not Iowa. It's Indiana,
Indiana. Okay.
Muncie, Indiana, specifically.
Muncie, that's right. Yeah, Muncie, Indiana. So he's a bright-eyed, bushy-tailed Midwest guy, and he's trying to find a job in the big city. But all of the jobs require experience, which he doesn't have, and he ends up working in the mailroom at Hudsucker, where he's given just the world's worst job orientation.
Right. This is the only time you'll be given this information. Uh, 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 if you use the wrong envelope for the type of mail, you will be docked.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and he's being told this in a very loud mailroom as people are throwing mail at him to sort.
Yep. But he gets an all-important blue letter, which he has to deliver in person. It's basically the blue letter. It has to be delivered in person to whoever has it on there. No secretaries, no middlemen. And that's how he runs into Paul Newman's character. Let's see here.
Uh,
Sidney J. Musburger.
yes, and yeah, so he's goes in the office to give him the blue letter, but instead of doing that, he wants to pitch his idea to him, which is it's just a circle on a piece of circle on a piece of paper. Yeah.
For kids.
Kids. Yeah. So
And so, yeah, he proceeds to light several important things on fire, and Paul Newman almost falls out the window.
yes, and Robbins has got him by his pants. He's like, my pants.
And he flashes back to he's with a tailor, and the tailor goes, "Oh, Mr. Massaburger, I you should buy the double stitch. The pants will last forever. Well, if you could charge me extra, nah, single stitch will be fine."
Yeah.
He flash back to him hanging there as his pants start to rip slightly.
Yeah.
And you cut back to the tailor. You know what? That Mr. Massaburger, he's such a nice man. I double stitch him for free. And the pants hold.
Hold, yes.
Which that's a nice little microcosm of the movie's weird sense of humor right there.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, to thank him for saving his life, Paul Newman decides to make Norville, Tim Robbins, the president of the company, because he thinks, okay, this guy will work. He's the proxy that we need.
Right. He's a complete idiot. He can't get anything done right. It is kind of funny as he's like trying to figure him out. So you never went to school, huh? No, I've graduated from the Muncie School of Business. But you weren't at the top of your class, right? No, I made the dean's list.
Yeah.
Like, because he doesn't really come off as being at all bright as a character.
No, he doesn't. Yeah, that's that aw shucks Midwest kind of personality that someone in the big city would think from the big city would think, oh, he's an idiot. Yeah.
Yeah. And so as you had this new president in charge, and Jennifer Layson Lee's character, Amy Archer, a Pulitzer Prize winning reporter, is on the case to try to figure out what the hell is up with this kid.
Yes, and of course she talks just like like you would expect a lady reporter in the 1930s to talk.
I believe that the Coen brothers have a fetish for brassy, confident women who don't pause between sentences. Between this and
the Big Lebowski.
And the Big Lebowski, yeah. At the very least, it keeps coming up.
Yeah. And so she. So Amy kind of ingratiates herself into Norville's life, and then he ends up hiring her to be his secretary, and so she's basically working undercover to get the scoop on him.
Yep. So that is the extent of the movie I feel like we can talk about without completely giving the gag away.
Mm-hmm.
Which you might say, DB, why are you and Daniel trying so hard when every trailer, every movie poster, the thumbnail on Netflix? I picked this UK poster I found online because it doesn't actually spoil what the gag of the movie is.
Right. Yeah.
Because they put something different in his hands. Like on every other cover, he is not holding dollar bills like this.
No.
Eh,
Yeah.
And the answer is that I kind of had it ruined for me, but I feel like you, the audience, if you decide that this sounds like it's your cup of tea, deserve the chance to go in there and not know what the punchline is in advance.
Right.
If
Yeah.
if you have any way of doing that at all. So
Yes.
we're going to get into some more kind of generalities before we get into spoiler talk.
Yeah.
So this movie has a lot of style to it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a well. Yeah. Yeah. Cohen. It's a Cohen Brothers movie. So yes, they do. They put a lot of the style into their in
Yeah,
the movies. Yeah.
like the set design, like every set is perfectly designed, is perfectly built. It evokes the era so perfectly. The
Yes.
costume design, the cars, the big clock tower there, which is a major plot element.
Hmm.
It all just looks perfect, and it's especially impressive for some of the shots because there would have been a minimum of CGI, so there were probably a lot of miniature work being done here.
Yeah. Yeah. And as somebody who really loves this period in time, and loves Art Deco, seeing it in a movie is always, always a treat for me.
An immediate 1 out of 10 bonus almost.
Yeah.
In the acting performances, everyone also does a very nice job.
Hmm.
Tim Robbins, like you said, he just bleeds that aw shucks attitude.
Hmm.
Jennifer Jason Lee, so Audrey Hepburn
Yeah.
that it almost hurts.
Yeah.
She's perfect in that role. Paul Newman as the bitter old, I should say, arrogant old businessman, also perfectly done.
Yeah.
Um, I like, just from like a directing, soundtrack, acting, set design, all like every visual and audio element, I would say this movie is just about darn perfect.
Yeah.
But it's also a little bit weirdly hollow, is the way I would put it.
Yeah. It's the the story is very kind of I hate to say run of the mill, but like you pointed out earlier, it's basically it's kind of like the producers, but with in the business world.
It
Uh,
You could also liken it a little bit to Mr. Smith Goes to Washington
mhm.
in terms of you have the innocent guy being set up by the others.
Yeah. Yeah.
I kind of found myself at a scene in the right at the start of the third act thinking, but I don't really know all that much about Tim because he's like kind of a shallow character because he starts off unsuccessful, gets successful, and it gets to his head. But like, there's not really like a very interesting journey there.
Yeah. His character arc is very it kind of felt unfulfilled in a way. Um, and it was yeah, like you said, he goes from well, yeah, it's the rags to riches to rags kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, and yeah, and you really don't kind of get the feeling that he learned anything.
yeah. The Amy Archer character is probably the most interesting just because she has a conflict because she's lying to him to get the stuff for her story, but she also falls for him. So she's at kind of loggerheads about what to do with herself.
Yeah, and yeah, because she kind of goes into it with the preconceived notion that he's an idiot. But then once she starts to get to know him better, she's like, "Oh, well, he's not an idiot. He's just kind of naive and
Like,
impressionable."
yeah, exactly. Like you said, at the end of the movie, I don't necessarily feel that he's gotten better. I just feel like he's gotten into better circumstances, which is different.
Yeah, yeah,
But so I think ultimately find myself recommending this movie. You saw me on Monday night, like just hit the ending and start raging out a little bit,
Yeah.
and we'll get into that in the spoiler section.
Yeah. Yeah.
But after having a few days to meditate on it, it's like, is the ending a bit stupid? Yes, but weirdly enough, our theme this week is things where the story isn't that great, but the surface elements are kind of rewarding.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting to compare Hudsucker Proxy to Godzilla X Kong, but there you go.
Yeah.
But there's our through line.
Yes.
So it's currently on Netflix. I would say that. So first off, if you've ever watched and enjoyed a Coen Brothers film, you're probably going to love this if you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's also just very stylish, and the dialogue itself. So I kind of felt like a lot of the humorous dialogue in Big Lebowski kind of was a bit too precious at times. I think the period piece element of that helps the dialogue in this movie seem a bit more on point.
Yeah. Yeah. And as I said before, there's no vulgarity in this movie.
Yeah, so you know you can show this to just about anybody, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
And at the end, it is kind of a happy ending, so there's not really a whole lot to object to too strongly.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we're gonna find actually no. So the thing that spoils the movie, if you know about it, we're gonna talk about very quickly. Daniel, do you have any non-spoiler thoughts to add before we move on?
Um, just that it dawned on me that Tim Robbins and his character journey in this movie is actually not all that different from the dude in The Big Lebowski. It just kind of ends up in well. Okay, he ends up in better circumstances than the dude, but it's kind of like, did he really learn anything? Yeah,
Right, right. Just a series of events happened.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, I would agree. Yeah, if you like the Coen Brothers, yeah, this is you'll enjoy this movie. I will say the uh, one guy we didn't mention was in this movie. He has like a
Oh,
minor role
right.
in it. Was Bruce Campbell.
How could I forget?
Yeah, yeah, he's kind of like a rival reporter of Jennifer Jason Lee. Um,
And
he,
he just named
he
Smitty.
Smitty, yeah, and he kind of, I mean, the look and style, of course, he fits that era very well in terms of just the way he looks and the way he can talk and, um,
His way of delivering lines. Like if you know that
yeah,
Bruce Campbell was the actual Captain America who had been found in the ice at some point in the 70s, I would have believed you.
yes, yeah, yeah, and and if you're wondering how he got cast in a Coen Brothers movie, it's because, of course, Bruce Campbell and Sam Raimi are like old, lifelong buddies. Yeah, they've and Sam Raimi is actually really good friends with the Coens, so that's where that connection came from.
Yeah, didn't Sam help co-write this or direct it or something like that?
He might have helped with the script. I think.
Yeah, I remember seeing something about that when I was doing a little bit of research on this movie.
Yeah.
Which, incidentally, this movie was not very well received at the time, critically or in terms of the box office. And I
Yeah.
can kind of see why, because it's an odd duck.
Yeah.
I will say, hey, editors or not editors, marketers, don't give away the punchline that makes the movie interesting.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's a good segue to our spoiler.
Spoiler time, because we're
Yes.
about to give away the part that makes the movie interesting.
Yeah, yes.
Never claim to not be a hypocrite.
Right. Yeah.
So the thing that he keeps drawing that's just a circle, it's the hula hoop. The
Yeah.
man invented the hula hoop.
Yes. And that's the only reason this movie takes place in 1959, because that's the year the hula hoop was invented.
Yes. And it's very some of the funnier scenes in the movie are like, okay, so like at first it just seems like he's a complete idiot, right? Because
Yeah.
he just all he does whenever he wants to talk about his great brilliant idea is he just holds up his little cocktail napkin drawing of a circle and says, this is my big idea that's going to put us on the map. for kids,
For
and just
kids.
refuses to elaborate further.
Yeah. Yeah, and yeah, so then then he shows up in the board meeting, he gets it made, and he's demonstrating it. And I wonder if he was kept doing that throughout that take, or if they had like did cuts in between, because he never stops, he keeps going. Like
Maybe
that's
maybe he just had excellent core strength.
oh, maybe, yeah. But yeah, so they see the idea. Of course, the other board members are like, well, what does it do? What do do you need
Yeah,
batteries?
yeah. Can we sell extra batteries?
Yeah, yeah. But of course, Newman, thinking, oh, we're trying to, we're trying to drive down the stock price and everything. So, oh, yeah, let's make it. Let's mass produce it.
And the process of them approving it was kind of amusing, just because I guess that's probably the scene that would be the most educational for a business class, just because you are kind of seeing a um, parodied version of corporate approval processes.
Yeah, yeah, and they even showed the two guys in the marketing department trying to figure out what to call it.
Right, because at first Paul Newman calls it the dingus, and on the like on the bill of materials and everything, it's just referred to as plastic extruded dingus.
Yeah, 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 and then of course they're showing like, okay, how much it was going to cost to
Yeah,
produce. I think it was like,
it was like 59 cents to produce. So proposed selling price 79 cents. Marketing guy looks at it and shakes his head, and so the guy just adds a one in front of the 79, and then he nods.
yeah, which but $1.79 in 1959. That was a good bit of money.
Yeah, just for reference, that would be 18 American comic books at the time.
Yeah,
If you're competing for a kid's pocket money.
yeah, yeah. So then they end up putting it out on the market, and they sell it in the toys. Of course, like none of the kids are really interested in it. They have no
Right?
idea
They
what to
can't
do.
figure it out.
Yeah, and it's not until one kid gets his hands on it, and he starts doing it with his torso, and he starts doing it with his feet, and he starts doing it with his head, and like, and
All
then
kids just rush in.
yeah,
And there's a nice little visual gag where they had slowly been adding new price stickers to it. 179, 159, 149, 139,
yeah,
99, 50 cents, two for 25 cents, free with any purchase.
yeah, yeah,
And then the kids rush in, and he quickly is like, you have this montage of him quickly removing all of the stickers. And he just slaps on 379.
yeah,
And then they have a newsreel of it taking the country by storm.
Mhm.
Um, so that's where Tim Robbins' character gets a big head, and the thing is, he doesn't really have a next idea.
yeah. Yeah, he's the yeah, they call him the idea man, and he's like, oh, I'm he's in there, barbershop getting a shave. He's like, oh, what you say? Oh, I got a bunch of ideas, hula hoop with multiple colors, and
Yeah, extra sand for the hard of hearing so they can hear the sound.
yeah,
Larger ones for the obese.
yeah,
But he really doesn't have anything. And through a series of circumstances, we can just kind of gloss over. He ends up being ruined, and uh, you know, they find out that he ripped the idea off of somebody else, which was not the case. But
yeah,
Newman was trying to tank the stock price and set him up.
yeah, yeah. And so and then he gets declared crazy with the use of quackery psychology.
Yes, we complete with the guy with the Austrian accent.
Yeah,
And so, he throws himself off of the building with the clock tower.
Mhm.
So this is kind of where the movie started. It was bookended, and this is like, boy, like he can't throw himself off the building, can he? Yes, he can. I'm like, okay, man. The further he falls, the more likely he's about to just splat. Is this going to have like a dark ending to it?
Yeah,
And then the moment that kind of made me rage,
yeah,
Moses, the kindly clock keeper, suddenly shoves a broom handle into the gears of the giant clock tower. which
Yes, and then
causes time to freeze for everyone except for Moses, a villain who fights Moses, try to get the clock working again, and the angel of Mr. Hudsucker.
yes. Yeah, it took me a little while to figure it out, but then it hit me. The Coen brothers are really big into Greek literature and Greek plays.
Right, like if you've ever
Uh,
seen "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou," it's really just the Odyssey set in Depression era South.
yeah. So this scene, so this scene in particular is basically like, so Moses is basically the Deus ex machina. Yeah,
Right,
and the angel of Warren Hudsucker is like the gods, like one of
or
the
the
Greek gods.
chorus, yeah.
The chorus, yes, coming down and fixing whatever, fixing the play, or fixing the story. And so Hudsucker tells Tim Robbins, "Hey, you never delivered my blue letter to Paul Newman." And he went, "Oh yeah," he said, "it's in your apron," because he's wearing the apron that he had in the mailroom. So he takes the blue letter out and he's reading it, and it said that whoever is made the president of the company, he gets all my shares, and
Right.
he's yeah,
Which if Paul and he wanted Paul Newman to be that president, but if you and the board decide different, I accept that.
yeah,
So really, if he had just delivered the letter to start with, the whole mess could have been avoided.
yeah.
Paul Newman's schemes were completely unnecessary.
Yes. Yeah, so as a result of that, you know, yeah, as they said, as DB said, the movie ends on a happy note where, although Paul Newman almost does a Hudsucker, and although we forgot to mention the part in the boardroom where one of the board members tries to do the same thing, tries
And
to dive
yeah,
out the window, and he just face plants into the into
yeah.
the glass.
And Newman's like, "Yeah, we installed some plexiglass last week."
Yeah. Um, but yeah, so Newman tries to do that, but then they talk him off the ledge, and then of course Tim Robbins is still the president of the company, and he's show him in the new board meeting where he's now invented the frisbee.
Yep. So the Hudsucker Industries is going to be successful forever, it seems.
Yes, yeah,
Uh, So, as I thought about it, I realized that the scene where the hula hoop had magically rolled out of the toy shop and down like a couple of blocks, turned and landed at the feet of the kid perfectly.
hmm
Okay, so like that was another moment of magic-ish
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, and also the scene when the newspaper hits Tim Robbins at the beginning of the movie, and he sees the coffee stain around the job opening at Hudsucker.
Right. So there's like little bits of Deus Ex Machina, but I don't know, man. Pulling a Zawoldo and
Yeah,
freezing time to save him from falling to the ground and splatting. Just like at the moment, it really angered me because it felt like a betrayal of the rules of the movie.
yeah. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
Like thinking about like just what the general light attitude of the movie, like I would almost liken it to a Broadway musical in terms of like what you're trying to analyze this Broadway musical's story. What? The thing
Yeah.
that's just there to give you an excuse to chain together songs? In the same way, this is like it's a visual treat. It's a bunch of snappy dialogue delivered by good actors. There's just not a lot of deeper meaning to it.
Yeah. It well there is a little bit of that a little bit of that anti big business and
Right.
and a parody of capitalism in there. Um at least at the beginning of the movie. When they're showing just like, oh, everybody just being a corporate drone.
Right. Right. But you're not really on a journey with Tim.
Right. Yeah.
So I decided, as I often do if I'm having conflicted feelings on a movie, I go look at what reviewers at the time had to say about it. Like, say, when we reviewed Blank Man, I was like, okay, I got to see what people had to say about this stinker.
Yeah.
And I stumbled across Ebert's review of this movie from the time. And it was a very interesting review because he scored it a 2 out of 4 stars. Because on the one hand, he saw the same merits we did, the actors, the snappy dialogue, the beautiful set pieces, the excellent directing, just everything going right on a surface level. But he also kind of said, the movie had nothing going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so he ended up splitting, like, so he's, one side of me, the angel on my shoulder wants to give it a 4 out of 4. The devil on my shoulder wants me to give it a 0 out of 4. So I'll split the difference to give it a 2 out of 4.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say that's probably, well, I would give him probably maybe 2.5.
Yeah, and it's like I could see myself showing this to somebody else. Like, if you had talked to me Monday night, this movie was complete BS, and I never wanted to think about it again.
Yeah.
Like, that ending had a very strong reaction to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But a few more days to sit on it has softened my opinion of it a bit.
Yeah.
I was just kind of taking it a little more seriously than it took itself.
Yeah. 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 And I will say another thing too. I'll say is it does have the Coen brothers signature kind of like dark humor.
Right.
Yeah.
So I could see some people being offended by, or disturbed by how brazenly, like, suicide is attempted multiple times, and
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah. So it might be a little triggering for some people. But yeah.
definitely not for the kids.
No. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Unlike the hula hoop
Uh, you know,
for kids.
for 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 general audience with parental guidance.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, like we were saying, if you like Coen Brothers, you'll probably like this movie. And if you're curious about it, I would say give it a watch at least once. As we said, it's on Netflix. So
And now I finally know what a Hudsucker is, and it's nothing like what I was imagining.
no, it's just a guy, a company named after the guy.